Chaplain Nate Olenkamp of Lutheran Brethren Homes to lead us in our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Glad to be with you this evening. You join me in prayer. Father, we call upon you this evening. We thank you, Lord, for calling us to these positions. Lord, we thank you for each person here, for the work, Lord, that is before them. Will you bless this time, Lord? We give them wisdom and discernment in the decisions that are made, and strength for the tasks ahead of them. Thank you, Lord, for that promise. Thank you, Lord, for the call. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's 5:30, August 7th, 2017, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Ferguson.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Spiegel. Here. Hicks.
Yeah.
Hopper.
Here.
Bishop.
We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and a committee of the whole recap. Andrew, would you like to start with the committee of the whole recap?
Well, Your Honor, members of the council, everything that was on the agenda this evening at the committee of the whole will either be on the agenda later tonight, with the exception of an update from the HRA, or the Housing, help me out. Redevelopment Authority. Jeff Gaffney, the executive director, was in to talk about the program and what the year's highlights were. And just a few meetings ago, we approved the levy for 2018 for the HRA to continue doing their activities. So, like I said, everything else that we talked about at the committee of the whole will be acted on later tonight, so you'll hear more about it.
Thank you, Andrew. Under approval of the agenda, I believe that item I-4, I'd like to remove item I-4 for further discussion by the Personnel Committee to bring that back at a later time. Andrew, did you have any other
Yes, Your Honor, members.
additions or corrections?
I do have to add one item. I printed these off in error late this afternoon, and I had removed item M1, which is a resolution adopting the final cost assessment for PI 5853. I had removed that under the understanding that the property owner affected or that's appealing that was not going to be here tonight. We did get correspondence from him through email, so we can add that to the agenda and have the discussion tonight. And
I apologize, Andrew. Which number? That was M1?
it was M1 on the first agenda that went out, and the ones that are printed in front of you do not have that item, but it was
I got it.
included on the original. agenda.
5853.
Yep.
Any other additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I'll make that.
Rod? Thank you, Brent. Second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There are no public hearings this evening. Under awarding of bids, we will need a resolution awarding the bid for Public Improvement 5306, the Pioneer Road Street Extension Project. Our city engineer, Brian Ybarra, will explain this to us.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Your Honor. On July 27th, 2017, sealed bids were opened for the Pioneer Road Street Utility Extension Project. A total of 8 bids were submitted at the time of the opening. Glading Construction was the apparent low bidder. They submitted the lowest bid amount of $210,981.65. The engineer's estimate was $354,351. Interstate then began to tabulate the bids and conducted a post-interview with Glading Construction. Everything was verified. Proposing at this time the construction contract with construction contingency, engineering design and construction administration, and some additional city costs. I'm anticipating a total project cost of $290,100. The project is specified to be substantially completed this fall. Also, this project is a 100% petition project. Keepers Incorporated was recently sent a revised letter that's also attached in your memo as far as consent to the award. acknowledging the updated prices and how it would be assessed to their benefit property. Their total assessment amount is approximately $125,510. The remaining portion is on the following next page, but would be the city's share of approximately $164,600. Therefore, at this time, I'm requesting the city council award the construction services contract to Gladen Construction in the amount of $210,981.65.
Are there any questions of our city engineer? If not, is there a resolution to award that bid?
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Second, Justin. Thank you, Justin. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Rachels.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Spiegel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Bradford.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We do not have any items under petitions and communications. However, we do have two open forum items tonight. The first being Mr. John Strock and it's regarding the cost of the new glass at City Hall and also yield signs. John?
Mayor, city councilmen, council members, my name is John Strelk. I reside at 519 West Vassa Avenue here in Fergus Falls. I just had recently paid my last utility bill here at the City Hall and noticed that the remodeling was done and there was bulletproof glass or the thick glass and the remodeling there. And it kind of caught me by surprise, and so I talked to the lady at the desk, and she said that it was done because they felt threatened and they didn't feel safe, and that surprised me, and I was wondering what that meant, because I didn't realize it was a dangerous position there. And so I was asking what that remodeling had costed the taxpayers, and asked for that information. In the past, we didn't seem to have money for different projects like Lake Alice skating rink and different issues that were brought up over the last 5 years. The budget was never there for small items like $5,000 and things like that. I guess my concern is, what's the message you are portraying to the people of the city? We should ask ourselves that. I just was recently up in Bemidji and was not here when I heard there was a standoff in Fergus Falls, and the police department worked greatly with working that situation out, and nobody got hurt. All of our lives are in danger every day as to if somebody decides to go crazy or to grab a gun or whatever the issue. The citizens are just as endangered as you people or the lady at the front desk. We should realize that with the situation that just happened a few weekends ago. What are we going to do? Barricade everybody? Is the next thing bulletproof glass here? You know, at the front door we have to go through metal detectors. I mean, we have prayer here, and I greatly applaud that. I'm so glad that our city still has the ability to say prayer before our meetings and ask God to direct us, and I think that's awesome because a lot of cities, I don't believe, still do that. So again, I just say, what's the message we're portraying to our citizens with this here? And where is it going to go next is my question. You know, we need to maybe think about that. And so on a lighter note, I live on West Vassa Avenue, and from Hillcrest to Union, there is no yield signs or any signs in the intersections. You have Elcott, which has, everybody has to stop north and south. Elcott has the right-of-way. You have Vernon Avenue, same thing. They have the right-of-way. Everybody stops that comes to that intersections. And right in the middle, you have Vassa with no signs. There has been multiple accidents on that road since I moved in there 20 years ago. I myself was involved with somebody coming out of Hillcrest at a high speed. I was in the intersection, but they're to my right, and according to our insurance companies, then they have the right-of-way. But according to how I was taught when I took my driving test many years ago, you looked left, you looked right, and you looked left again because the person to your left was going to hit you first. Now, they contradict each other, either what you're taught or what the insurance company says. So would it not be simple to just put a yield sign on some of these? And I don't know if there's other residential streets that have the same issue. I haven't looked into it. Maybe that's something that the council can do, or the engineer of the city, but how hard is it to put a yield sign on these intersections so everybody knows who has the right-of-way? And I would ask the council to look into that.
All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
I don't know, I'm going to respond to your first one just real briefly, just because, you know, when I went to school, we didn't have a police officer in our school either, and I don't think anyone up here is glad that we live in a time that's different as far as the safety of our public officials and people who work for our city. So I'm not glad to see that there's bulletproof glass in our lobby of our city hall. However, when I know sitting in these chairs, when you have a professional consultant that comes and says, you know, when you're redoing the lobby and says this is what you need to do for the safety of your employees, when you're talking about the safety of the people that work for the city, I just don't think it's our job to question that. So that's where I'm at. So I'm not happy that we have to take extra precautions. You mentioned we had a standoff just this in Fergus last week. So it's the times we live in. I don't think anyone is glad that we, you know, have people stand behind bulletproof glass. But when a professional consultant suggests that you have protect the safety of your city employees, then I think that that's the advice that we take. Bill?
And not just the architect, but our chief of public safety took a very strong stance on that and said, if you're going to redo your front desk, you need to put that glass in now. So it was even more so from chief of public safety.
Sure.
Well,
I appreciate your comments, John. I don't think anyone is glad to see that that's the world we live in, but unfortunately, it is the world that we live in.
I understand your feeling on that, and a consultant may say that, but do we trust? I mean,
I do
like I
trust the
say,
chief of police.
Yes.
we have citizens that were at danger a few weekends ago from somebody with a gun. I heard that he actually shot a couple rounds. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, when it comes down to it, the citizens are at risk too if you want to go that route.
Sure.
And where do we stop is what I'm asking. What's the next step? Do we just continue? I mean, yes, we live in a crazy world, and it's sad that it's that way. I don't know. It's just my answer is I think we need to stop and look at what we're portraying to our citizens. And thank you.
Thanks, John. Second item under the open forum, Mr. Wayne Swenson, and it's regarding thistle control policies.
Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, I have a sample here to send around. Maybe you've seen this around town. Many of them. I had hoped I could put up some images on the screen tonight, but we'll get them emailed to you later. Lynn said she could help me with that. Anyway, the question is, what are your city weed control rules? And so I obtained this today, and there's a lot of things in there that I won't touch on, but in general it says any weed, noxious or not, defined by the state, turf growing at a height of greater 6 inches on any privately owned land in the city, boulevards and so on. Where I live in Woodland Heights, there's a large pasture area that is owned by the Twin Fountain Development folks and has been for a considerable number of years. I've lived in Woodland for 24, going on 25 years now, and in that time I've fought thistles constantly. Several years ago, I had a tractor and I mowed them down, and the thistles were taller than me standing up on the tractor. And I don't have that ability anymore. But whenever there's a nice northwest wind, I get a very nice coating of thistles all over my lawn. And so the neighbors and myself, we have to expend a considerable amount of time and/or finances to fight these thistles that are brought on us by a person who does not take care of their property. So the city has a rule, says if the letter is sent out to the property owner, they have 7 days to respond. If they don't do anything, then the city takes it upon themselves to hire somebody to take care of it. I've worked with Mr. Taylor, and the letters have been sent out, and there was no response. A farmer was contacted to do some mowing, and this is almost 2 weeks ago now, and the thistles still are not taken care of as of today. And so I'm asking, is there some way that we can amend these rules to put a little bit more teeth into it so that the problem can be taken care of in a little more timely manner? Thistles bloom early, and as soon as they're done blooming, they start going to seed, and by that time, it's should be gotten rid of. I know there's people that, with the pollinators, they like to have the thistles because it's good for the pollinators. But after they're done blooming, it's time to get rid of the thistles. So the pasture land that is next to me, it's about, I don't know, 25, 30 acres or maybe more, I don't know the exact size. It's zoned R4, multifamily. So it's not a rural pasture. It supposedly by law cannot be mowed or hayed for bales or anything like that. But the grass in there and the weeds and everything are quite tall, way beyond the 6-inch limit. So my question is, how is the city going to enforce the rules that they have? One neighboring city, Moorhead, they have a 5-day compliance rule. And if the compliance is not taken care of within 5 days, they hire a contractor. And they assess a $100 administrative fee. That goes against the taxes in the future. Violation in the coming year, they automatically don't even send a letter. They just assess a $100 fee, hire it done, and charge it against the taxpayer. So they're much tougher in their rules than we are. Whether they follow through or not, I don't know. But this is what Moorhead's regulations say. So I've talked to Brad Mergens at West Otter Tail County, about the weeds in the general county area and how they handle it. And there's just an awful lot of weeds this year, partly because of the dry conditions. Weeds seem to grow better when it's drier and hotter. And as an old farm boy, I grew up fighting weeds. I'm still fighting weeds. And so I just ask that you would consider amending or modifying your policies, and I'd be glad to help work on that situation. We'll get you some pictures, and I just ask that you take care of the things that are on your regulations already, follow through on it, and don't just twiddle your thumbs. Thank you.
Thank you. Under the consent agenda, there's a copy in your packet. There's also a copy on the board. Is there any items on the consent agenda that anyone wanted to pull off and speak about individually?
Could I pull number 9 up?
Number 9. Anthony wants to talk about number 9. Anyone else have anything other than number 9? If not, is there a resolution approving the, yes, a resolution approving the consent agenda, sans number 9? Tom?
I'll second it.
Brent? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Rachel.
Yes.
Milford.
Yes.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Spiegel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Alpert.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. And number 9, Anthony, is the resolution approving mayor and council member vacancy policy, which Andrew has a copy of, and we also Rod made a slight adjustment, but go ahead, Anthony.
Your Honor, I would like a red line version of what the old one was versus the new one, if we could,
Your
so
Honor.
that we could see what the changes are.
Your Honor.
I kind of asked for that before when we changed documents, and I'm not going to vote for this just because I would like a red line version.
Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, there was not a previous version of this, so this was created for this occasion, so there is no red line version because City Attorney Nicklemo just drafted this.
This is really light.
Yep, there's been a few vacancies over the years, but there's never been anything formal that's been adopted in writing as a written policy. So there's been a few probably different processes used over the years that maybe don't match one another, but this is the first time it's been written.
And then maybe for clarification, we could have, Rod, you just want to explain you had added one item to the memo that's in our packet.
Yeah, I had read through the minutes, of the Charter Commission. I thank them for their work. I think they did a lot of good discussion and helped us. As we looked at those minutes, you could see that they were considering various options, and they had different, opinions. The only thing I suggested that we add in the committee of the whole was that the manner of voting, not whether we take one or two votes, but just simply the manner of voting where we each cast just one vote for one candidate. And from that, and that's what we did with our last appointment, that be added in there, because we did have a discussion, and you might remember this, Anthony, we had about how should we vote, and I thought we could take care of that. We typically vote a certain way in the United States. So that was the only suggestion, and I thought it was good. I thought our discussion was good in the committee of the whole. And so, yeah, I don't really see a problem with it myself, passing it forward, but.
So we'll incorporate that into step 5,
Yeah.
just a singular vote for one candidate. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, is there a resolution to approve the mayor and/or council member vacancy
Yeah,
calls for the?
I'll make that.
Thank you, Rod.
I'll second that.
Darren? Roll call, please.
Richards.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Beal.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Capper.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
And can we just note, Your Honor, to thank the commission for their work on that? It's helpful. Will save us time in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Rod. Under ordinance and resolutions, item number 1 is a first reading of ordinance 61 7th series establishing a 90-day moratorium on acting on petitions submitted to initiate special assessment procedures. I believe this is the ordinance that we asked the attorney to draft, so we just need someone to introduce that.
I'll introduce that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Item number 2 is a first reading of ordinance number 62, 7th series, adding 7.34, which is permitting uses by conditional use permit, which is childcare facilities. Again, we will need someone to introduce that.
I'll introduce that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Darren. Item number 3 is the rehabilitation and redevelopment proposals. 3A is pertaining to the resolution authorizing the sale of property 315 East Vassa to be awarded at the August 21st, 2017 council meeting. And there's information in your packet, but April, would you like to walk us through? Does anyone have any questions of April of the proposal that's in your packet? I had one question, and I don't remember the numbers, but it was like $68,000 that they had in proposed renovations. Is that, in my memory?
I think you're thinking of the total expenses we've incurred for abatement of these properties, and one of the properties is not listed on here because that is to be redeveloped into a parking lot,
Okay.
and the cost would be covered, I believe, by a private donor. But the total cost for these 3 properties was $43,000, and we would be able to recoup up to $30,000. I think our difference was just shy of $12,000. And that was the main objective, to go out on RFP and request proposals for these locations and redevelopment.
Well, the total on project, or the 315 under the contractors is $68,500.
That's what they're gonna put into the house,
Sure, and
right?
I'm just wondering, is that just assuming they're gonna do a lot of it themselves, but do we have a way of tracking that they're actually, are you inspecting that they're actually doing the work?
We
that
are
they're-
actually going to enter into a developers agreement with the developers that are purchasing these lots and the rehab of the one house at 315 East Vassa. So that is how we would be holding them accountable.
Okay. So we need to authorize the sale, and then we need 2 weeks for it to be, for the public to react, and then it becomes official on the 21st, is that
Correct. Yep.
correct?
You actually take your vote at the next meeting, right?
So we just need a resolution to authorize the sale, and then we actually vote on the 21st? Okay. Any questions of April on the process or on this particular agreement?
Yes, Your Honor, just the entering into that agreement, is that something that is going to be spelled out for us
Yeah, Ralph is working on that.
prior to, so we have time to look at
Yeah.
it prior to this?
Yep, it'll go out in the next council packet.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a resolution authorizing the sale of 315 East Vasa?
I'm with that, Your Honor.
Scott and Anthony, thank you. Roll call, please.
No,
We'll
next
vote
time.
on it at the next meeting.
Oh, okay, you just told me that. All right, the second item under B is a resolution authorizing the sale of property at 502 South Sheridan Street. And again, it will be awarded at the August 21st council meeting. Any questions on that property? Anything we need to know on that one, April?
Nope, again, same conditions, that there'd be a developer's agreement for that lot as well.
Someone offer that resolution?
I'll offer
Brent,
that.
Brent, thank you. Tom, second, thank you. And item C is a resolution authorizing the sale of property at 1115 North Oak Street.
And I would just repeat what I've said prior, is that we have a developer's agreement, a time frame of December 31st of 2018 for everything to be occupiable, and a certificate of occupancy.
Is there a resolution authorizing?
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you, Brent. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I think- April, thank you. I think, these were 3 tough properties, and I think, by doing this, we're gonna get something good out of it and get them back on the tax roll. And I think that whole plan of trying to clean up some of these properties is working. So, thank you.
Thank you, and I agree.
Your Honor, could I ask you one other question, April? And it was related to the Gatner, the number of parking spaces created on the street. And I went through
That was
That went
on the consent agenda?
You're right.
was approved and-
Can you just clarify, do you know about how many that was, or what that amounts to? Or it isn't that important, but I was,
I think I'm gonna look at you in about 24.
okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yep, no worries. All right. Thank you, April. Under presentation of claims, tonight we have claims in the amount of $1,593,964.83. And if there's any questions, we'll direct those to our finance director. If not, pay the bills. Scott says pay the bills. Is there a second?
Make that.
Second. Thank you, Tom. Any questions of Bill? Roll call, please.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Armisen.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. We have no board, committee, or departmental reports this evening. Under reports from staff and administrative officers, item number 1 is an update on the dog park. Steve Plaza, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Back in 2011, a group approached me to build a dog park. We even raised money, and it was coinciding with the Angel of Hope Park. The two groups wanted to do 2 separate projects. One was the Angel of Hope Park, the other one was a dog park. At that time, we went in front of the Parks and Recreation Board and the City Council, and they both approved the dog park would be a good idea. However, that group would need to pay for the construction and management. At that time, we let them use Kennedy Park over by the wastewater treatment plant, the old tree farm. Since then, we found out that is a scenic easement through the state and nothing can be built on that property. We even raised money. We were the fiscal host. They raised a total of $157 for that project. And then the project sort of dwindled down. All of our parks are dog-friendly. Dogs can be in the park unless otherwise posted. And the only place it's not posted to be a dog-friendly is on the beach area itself, the sand area, for obvious reasons. So right now, we don't have a planned park for a dog park, specifically for that. However, I know a lot of people are using the Channing Ice Rink for a dog park with the built-in boards. We also gave the dog park group the fences that we used to replace on De Lagoon softball fields. So they do have those to help mitigate their expenses. We rolled them up, they have them and they're storing them, so if a dog park does happen with fences on, they do have the chain link fence. So is there any questions?
Well, I think I brought it up. My first question is, as a skater, I was wondering about the effect of manure under ice, you know, and creating heat. You know, I just wondered if that was good for ice conditions on Channing Avenue. I used to skate on that rink, yeah, but I never had to encounter that poop under the ice. But is Cleveland used for that also, or just Channing?
I haven't seen a whole lot of people use Cleveland, maybe because that's on that's actually a school site. The most times I see people are on Channing. People can obviously go to Cleveland, however, that is school property, that's not a city park.
Yeah, I guess then the other question was, does the council want to consider this again in a larger... I don't think it's reasonable for a dog group to necessarily take on the costs of a dog park when that's something we also provide to tourists and other people coming through. So, Your Honor, I guess I just wanted to raise that for us to consider. Or maybe the signage, more signage, or a place that people can have an enclosed, you know, some enclosed area. But it seems to be a big question, Fergus, when I talk to people that don't know the city, they don't know where to go with, you know, for that.
You know, I think,
so to speak.
One of the other times this got brought up was particularly important for the downtown residents. And perhaps, you know, on putting a plug-in for the Wright Park community design, maybe that's something that on Thursday evening, 5:30 here, you know, we could get downtown residents, you know, to put some ideas forward on a dog park on Wright Park. Because I think they were looking for more of a zone where they could let the dog off the leash and for the dog to get exercise. And I know it got brought up particularly for downtown residents that don't have that, because it got considered to be putting it on perhaps some of the grass out here. So
I know most of our parks, dog can be off leash as long as they're under control. I know out in De Lagoon they are. It's just the owners picking up after the dogs,
Yeah.
that's where the concern comes.
But I think that's the bit that doesn't happen.
Well,
I mean, I talked to a resident, obviously, the other day that even,
Right.
obviously, you know, he said it was between, you know, he has one person walk a dog this way, kind of from his house, and and they both leave him a little present every time.
Yeah.
He said he just seems to be on the zone where that happens,
That's-
and they don't
yeah.
pick it up.
even in dog parks, that happens as well.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Any other council members feel we need a discussion on the dog parks or more direction, or do you think it's adequate for our city the way it is?
I'd like to add one comment. I think Councilmember Speedle's barking up the wrong tree.
And I'd like to point out, and maybe we do need, all of our parks are dog friendly. Even our ball fields are not prohibited by dogs, and those are fenced in out at De Lagoon. Now, if you're a visitor, you probably don't know that, and I don't encourage people to go on our sporting fields. And people have been relatively good on inside the sporting fields about picking up, but not all the time.
It seems to me that when you're talking a dog park is different than having dogs allowed off leash. Like a dog park is a confined area where people go there specifically to let their dogs run around with other dogs, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
what
it's enclosed area. Sometimes they're separated, large dogs from small dogs, or aggressive dogs from nice dogs. They have apparatuses, some have jumps. You can get, elaborate as you want, or basically a fence and have the dogs figure it out. It all depends what you want.
You run
Yeah.
I think this is a county issue.
All right. Any other thoughts?
I would say give people to come to the Right Pod discussion on Thursday. I mean, that's a good venue. You know, it's something that we're looking at, you know, how do we redesign Wright Park? And I think particularly for the downtown residents, if we're looking for, because I envisage something like you're saying is something that's confined, you know, perhaps a tree bark kind of floor that's more appropriate for that, and see if, you know, there's support for putting something like that in.
And maybe garner some more ideas, like you
Yeah.
said.
Sure, at least to tackle the problem of waste downtown, because that is an issue as well. That's probably maybe a separate issue, but anyway, it's an issue.
On the footpath particularly.
Okay, well, let's start there.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, item number 2 is audio and visual equipment for city council chambers. Bill Sonmore, would you address that?
Thank you, Your Honor. You, as the city council, instructed us as staff to look at our audio system here for the city council chamber, so I gave you a little bit of history about that. The current one was installed back in 2001. A new mixer was installed in 2010. We did a new recording advice in 2013, and then updated that with the new video system that we're using here tonight in 2016. Our IT department went through Lakes Country Service Co-op to look at the options. We are able to do that. That acts a lot like the state contract that you hear us talk about, where Lakes Country goes out, they do the bidding or the quoting for that to see what the best prices are, and then we don't have to go through that process. It's their cooperative purchasing program for that. So we looked at that. And in your packet, you have the quote for the sound system at $32,836.18. And then we also received a quote for a new video system. So new cameras up there. There would be one in the center. If you wanted that on for other certain meetings where you weren't going to be panning in and out, you just wanted to set it and let it run for that period. It would be all new PEG access equipment back in that corner that Jim is using right now. So that's that other quote for $34,484.48. If you do 2 systems at once, there's only one then installation, so it's a little bit cheaper. We would take $5,267.68 off of that. So that's the gross pricing at that. Now, also with the audio system, we had quoted out to add in, like right about here, so mounted there, looking down at the table here, a document camera. And I believe at the county, in your boardroom, you have a document camera where you can slide the paper under there, and then it's projected on the screen. Is that correct?
We've got one for documents and one for maps.
Okay. So, and now I know you're going to ask, is ours documents and maps? I don't know. I'd have to see. And Tony is gone this week, who's working on that. But we'd look at that imaging camera. That was $5,563.02. That's within the quote that I mentioned, plus a portion of that installation and programming. So that's built in that price. If you decided you're not interested in that, then that certainly that price would come down $5,563 plus some for the installation and programming of that, because you wouldn't do that. But put that in there. I thought that would be a nice option for the council chambers. From the budgetary impact of this, we're looking at it 2 ways. The audio system from the city hall budget, so our general government buildings budget, and then the replacement of the video system would actually come through PEG Access. Currently, PEG Access owns the 3 cameras and all the equipment that Jim is running back here. As you know, PEG Access is funded through a franchise fees that's on the cable bills. That comes to the city of Fergus Falls, then the city of Fergus Falls passes that on to PEG Access to operate the business and thus replace the equipment as well. Did discuss that with Jim, and he does recommend we would go forward with that. And that's why I put in here that if you go with the video quote, then it would be contingent on that going to the PEG Access Board for their approval, of course, of which we're fiscal host for, but we'd want them to give their approval for that. So the question for you tonight is, do you want to do these projects? Is that something you'd like to see done? And then do you want to see both of them done at the same time? Some of the benefits of doing both, you could then move towards live streaming of our council meetings. So that could be happening over the web right now as we are meeting. And also it could be posted to our website, right, Lynn? And so you could click on and watch the council meeting then directly from our website as well. Because we are the best show in town. No. That's just for you, Anthony.
Any questions of Bill?
I think just the sound system was the first major one that I'd heard from most residents that talked to me about. And part of that is people just, having training to sit up to the mic and speak into it as you learned, in school. But it wasn't heard well, I think there were, and I talked to Jim about it before a couple times. But I'm glad you're doing this. I think we have to take care of the sound system. As for the other, I think it's good to move ahead into the, try to keep up with the county a little bit. We're kind of backward, but yeah.
And it is from the PEG, that 32,000 from the PEG access.
Correct. Would be
budget.
funded out of their funds. I'm glad you bring up the microphones. I want to point out one item with that. Right now, these microphones that we have are unidirectional, I believe, so you have to speak directly into them. The ones that would be replaced, you'd still have a microphone in each one of you, but it would be omnidirectional, so it would catch us from the side as well. So they will be very sensitive as well. So even if you're leaning back in your chair, or if you're, happen to say something between each other, just, even in a low tone, will probably get picked up because it's on the side. So they'll be very receptive, but hopefully then, hearing much better, so.
I think perhaps we just need to digest the 30,000 a little bit, maybe, and then bring it up in a couple of weeks as to how we think.
Yeah.
But I think we have to, the sound for sure. I think we need to bite the bullet on that one, because Rod's right. A lot of residents say it's hard to hear, and there are a lot of residents that do watch council meetings.
Right.
So I think, it is, as you say, it's a service that we're performing, and if they can't hear very well and they can't see very well, then, it's not a good place to be. But do we? I mean, perhaps between now and the next council meeting, can we feel out the PEG Access Board to see if they're kind of
I was going to
willing?
suggest, how about if we approve this and then see if they bring a recommendation on the 21st, why don't we go forward with both of them, because then we'll get the 5,000 discount,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct. So it is good to do them together, and your next board meeting is on the 17th, right? So they could have their board meeting, we come back and act on both contracts then on the 21st.
Are you making that motion, Alan?
I'd make that motion then.
I'll second it.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 3 is a motion directing staff to implement a notification system on the city's website, together with providing basic educational services to the public regarding commercial and recreational drone operations within the city. And we have a memo from Rolf on that. Anthony, did you want to address that? Or I'm sorry, Andrew, did you want to speak to that?
Your Honor, members of the council.
I was the one that brought it up.
Yes, at the last meeting, Councilmember Hicks brought up the drones and asked City Attorney Nick Lamo to look into it. And we did just that. We spent a lot of time looking at rules and regulations that are in place with drones. We learned that there's a drone community, and we also learned that the FAA highly regulates the drone and drone operations, specifically in areas located near airports. One of the things we learned, there's 2 different categories of drone operations. One is commercial drone operators, which is very heavily regulated and requires operators to have a pilot's license, so to speak, or to take proper training and classes with the FAA. That one we really don't want to have anything to do with. The other side of the drone world is recreational droning. And the only requirement that they have, other than following setback requirements and distances of airports, is to notify the local airport and/or control tower, if there is one present, that they are going to be taking flight with the drone. Right now, individuals who are complying with that regulation are calling our airport. So one, I don't think a lot of people are complying with that, but 2 of the people that are potentially calling our airport director on the weekend on his cell phone or at the airport. So one of the things we learned, rather than try to step where we don't belong, so to speak, and regulate these things with the FAA, is to make it easier for our recreational drone users in town to comply with the law. And that would be by providing this online notification system where they could simply just type in, submit it online via their smartphone or computer that they're going to take operation. We'll have a log of people flying, and that will satisfy that requirement of the federal law. So we're recommending that we don't take action in terms of an ordinance to get into the regulation of drone business, but we are hoping that there's a motion made to the effect to make it easier for our residents to comply with the regulations that are in place.
Any questions?
No, I make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
The work done.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Darren. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item number 4 is an update on the legislative committee meeting with State Historical Preservation Office. Andrew, Rod, Darren, and myself are all there. Andrew, did you want to start off, and then we can get an update from Rod and Darren?
Yeah, Your Honor, members of the council, real quickly, on July 19th, the legislative committee traveled down to St. Paul to meet with SHPO. And that was our first opportunity to really talk about the phased plan that we've put into action and get in front of the staff and really feel out what they're looking at, how they're feeling, what they're going to require. And I will say the meeting was a very productive meeting for being the first meeting. It's going to be one of many likely on the topic, but much of the conversation centered around historic tax credits and the city's desire to understand what actions we have to take to ensure that the tax credits remain, knowing that tax credits are vital for any redevelopment that would take place. So as we walked through and detailed our plan with SHPO, the thing that they kept suggesting to us was to engage an architectural historian, and I want you all to not confuse this with historical architect.
I made that mistake.
They corrected us real quick. It's a very specialized field, an architectural historian, and more or less what they would do is make a case as to why something should stay on a national registry. So why the steps we've highlighted or the action that we have before us, why would that justify keeping the property on the National Registry, thus keeping the tax credits intact? We don't have a cost of what it would take to engage I have to keep looking back, architectural historian. I always get the words backwards. But we did just meet with Stantec and McDonald Mack, Todd Grover today. And SHPO's providing us a list of architectural historians that we can contact, and we'll have that at the next meeting on the 21st of August, what a general proposal or contract would look like. So then the council can decide if they want to engage that and follow that advice of SHPO, or if they want to take a different direction, but there'll be more on that to come. But anyway, much of the discussion focused on phase 1, which is the more immediate phase, and the phase that we have some funding for. And one of the things that SHPO indicated to us, that buildings 2, which is the building right in the front, the new administration building next to the tower, building 11, which is one of the buildings in the back, and then building 30 are non-contributing buildings, and that EAWs or environmental assessment worksheets are not necessary unless us, the responsible local government unit, determines that they are. So basically, they gave us the green light to take those buildings down if we wanted to move in that direction right now. And then what they did say was the EAWs would be necessary for buildings 32, and then those connecting pieces on the wings of the main structure. Like I said, we met today with Todd Grover, and he's already begun to discuss with SHPO what those EAWs will look like and what they'll require. And council previously gave authorization to begin the plans, or the EAWs, so they'll begin the work on that right away as soon as they determine what the EAW scope will look like. So like I said, overall the meeting was productive, but we'll likely have many others, but it was nice to hear that they have green-lighted some of the projects, and we will be able to move forward on some of those later this year while we decide what our path forward is, whether we engage a architectural historian or not. And the one other thing I will mention, previously we did the EAW on the tunnels, and we got comments from SHPO and the MPCA Stantec is right now preparing the responses. Those will go out next week. And then the next step is for the responsible government unit, the RGU, which is the city of Fergus Falls in this case, to determine whether there's an EIS that's necessary, which is kind of like more or less a phase 2 of an EAW. So if we make the determination that's not necessary, we're able to proceed with the tunnel demolition. If we make the determination that it is necessary to continue, which I see no reason why we would do that, we would have to take additional steps. So that's also going to be an action before you on August 21st to make the determination as to whether or not the EIS is necessary based on the EAW that's been performed, the comments that have been received, and then our response to those comments. So Brian will have all of that for you at the time.
Thank you, Andrew. Darren, Rod, did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
Andrew summarized it very well. I will add that, our part of, in addition to some of the messages that we were trying to deliver were, we want to be working as a partnership in this. There isn't any reason why they have to impose mounting regulations against it when we're trying to do something that they really want us to see done. Don't hinder our progress or anything in that direction. So we hinted towards that a few times. So
I hope we were successful.
yeah, me too.
Rod, did you have anything
It's
to
fine.
add on that?
Good summary, I think.
Question, Your Honor?
Yes.
So where are we in kind of like a bidding process? I mean, we sort of say obviously we want to try to get some of this done this year. What do we kind of see as a timeline?
We haven't fully yet established that. As Andrew mentioned, buildings 2 and 11, essentially the buildings that are non-contributory, we could have pretty much the green light to go with those. But we were looking to have a complete package that consisted of building 30 and 32. So we're waiting on to hear the response from SHPO. We may do a combination of all these buildings, or we might do more of a piecemeal approach, and then ultimately maybe sole contract per building. That's all contingent on how we can get through some of these EAWs on building 30, 32 right now.
Your Honor, at the very least, we want to wait until we have that go-ahead on the tunnels, because that's going to be kind of the big piece of this phase 1. So I envision that as soon as we determine on the 21st that, or however that shakes out, if we determine that there's no EIS necessary, then we can proceed with really hammering down plans and specs on the tunnels in these green-lighted buildings, so we can proceed with that. If we determine that the EIS is necessary, then certainly that's going to slow things down. So, but the tunnels are a big piece. We could go out and do the 2 buildings as standalone buildings right now, but we just feel that the prices and in packaging together, and then the importance of the tunnels are large enough to wait for that.
And that's what we're hoping to have a little bit more information. Just to back up on the EAW, from the initial response we received from SHPO, they requested additional information in regards to the structural integrity of the tunnels themselves. And the other response we received was from the PCA in regards to the NPDES stormwater permit. That's, we can answer that within one paragraph. The stormwater permit, yeah, we'll acquire that. In regards to SHPO's requests for additional information, Stantec did visit the site a few weeks ago to take more confirmation pictures and documentation in regards to the structural safety of these tunnels.
I think, obviously, the discussion was quite far-ranging, and we had numerous positions even on our legislative group. So we did discuss a lot of these things. And I think the course we're taking is the right one. My only concern, and I just wanted to mention, is that if I was thinking in terms of playing cards, the horseshoe is like face cards and aces. That's all the big stuff. The tunnels are like, a 5 of clubs or something. And if I was playing cards and I was, trying to win at that game, which I usually try to win when I'm playing cards, I would probably not worry so much about the 5 of clubs. So I guess there was some personal, I just say that's a personal opinion expressed. I don't think it's wrong to wait. I do think that we have to continue to be in the driver's seat, because I believe SHPO is primarily they respond to things. They're not setting forth things. They respond to what we do. I don't think that they would risk, and again, I agree with what we're taking, the step we're taking. I'm just saying, I don't believe SHPO would risk the whole horseshoe if we said, we are putting this in a package, we're going to take the tunnels down. We explained the moisture wicking problem. The tunnels were designed for heat. Now they wick moisture to the building. I specifically spoke about the mold, the inability to go up there to have tours, and that actually SHPO could be hindering and aiding and abetting the destruction from within of that building by waiting too long on these tunnels. We've already waited too long. So I was the impatient one. I was, but I think overall I agree with the steps. I just don't think we should wait too long for SHPO on this, because I don't believe that they would risk the horseshoe for a tunnel or two. Anyhow, it's a difficult discussion, but I do think they heard us, and I thought it was a worthwhile trip, because they were more aware of the situation, and that we were taking control in a way of the process that I don't think we have before.
Absolutely, I would agree, Rod. I just think that, I think you're right. Let's not let them know that it's the fire clubs, but I think that, but you're right. Ultimately, it's the horseshoe that we're talking about, and we are negotiating with SHPO, and we need to make sure that when we get to the point where it's the horseshoe, we're gonna need those historic tax credits to develop the horseshoe element. So that's the aim, and so I think we're getting towards that point in the discussion where everyone's aware of what we're actually talking about. We're not really talking about buildings in the back that really don't have any historical significance.
Yeah.
Tunnels, so.
So Chair, on them, just put it on the agenda for the 21st for an additional update.
Yep. Sounds good. Anything else, Rod or Darren, or anyone from the council? Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is a landfill project and demo rates update from, we discussed at the committee of the whole. We're going to just give a brief recap. Bill?
Thank you. Yeah, across the street at the committee of the whole, we talked about our landfill. We're looking at a project, basically, Brian discussed the permitting process for our landfill for the demolition debris cells. So that's, if you're doing a remodeling project or something like that, that demolition debris is what's going in that cell. If we want to stay in that business, we are going to have to do a project out there. Project will be around $1 million, or $1.1 million is what we're estimating. We talked about, we need to fund the opening and the closing of future cells out there. So when you fill one cell up, you have to have the money to close that one, open another one to keep that process going. We currently have a 10-year permit for 2 5-year cells. So we would construct that first cell, and then we would construct this leachate collection system. And that's a long-term asset that would continue to serve the future cells as well. So we'd look at depreciating that over a 40-year period. We'd look at issuing bonds for this of around $1.15 million. And if you choose to go forward with this, we would come back at a later date and discuss those bonds. Those would be over a 20-year period. So if you want to move forward with this, the action tonight would be ordering in plans and specifications for Phase 3A. That's that new demolition cell, because we're about full, and we won't be able to accept waste beyond 2017 for that cell, because it will be closed. And then accepting Houston Engineering's professional services proposal for design and construction administration. That's in the amount of $103,500. Talk to you about the bonding there, and then of course the impact on the rates to fund all this. We're currently at $16 per cubic yard. We'd look at going to $25 per cubic yard. So that, of course, in our thought process going forward of wanting to move forward, knowing that would be, then we'd have to adjust rates. So the people, the waste that goes into that, the people using the cell, disposing of that waste going into that cell, then that's where the cost recovery would come on the prices of that. Moving from $16 to $25 per cubic yard. So that is a big increase, 56% increase. those projects that get done basically out there, the cost of projects would go up then for that disposal of waste on that. Am I missing anything, Brian, on it? That's just a very high-level synopsis, but I don't have for you the date we'd implement those rate changes. We'd come back to you with that as well. So I think really the first step is if you want to stay in the business of running that demolition cell, which we are geared up for the next 70 years out there, 67 years is what our current estimate is. We need to take these next steps. So, and again, maybe backing up, why are we doing this? Why the leachate collection system? It goes along with our permit, and it's from the MPCA requirements that are upon the city of Fergus Falls. So it's not just you as a council choosing to do this. If you want to stay in the business, we have new regulations basically that are demanding that we put in this system.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions of Bill?
I would say that we did actually meet with the full contingents of the MPCA out there, including the commissioner for the MPCA, and did obviously explain, what this cost was going to, or what this system was going to do to our costs. And, as much as he was obviously, listening, it's, as you say, it's a mandate from the state to protect the waters, and there's nothing we can do about it. Other than ask people to lobby to the MPCA to reduce some of the controls. But as we sit today, the permit requires us to do this, so it's an obligation.
Correct.
With that, I would make that.
So the action is actually to accept the engineering report and then to increase the fees. Is that what we're acting for the action? Is that correct?
So Brian, do you want to clarify that to make sure I don't mess that up?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Yes, the 4 bullets here, the 2 first ones, authorization order plan specifications for the construction of Phase 3A, which is new cell. And then we're going to do that in conjunction with the closure of the active cells, Phase 1 and 2. These 2 projects are combined. To proceed with this, we're also accepting Houston Engineering's professional services proposal for both these phases, doing the construction and the closure of both these, all 3 of these cells.
Is that, Anthony, is that
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. For recommendations 1 and 2.
Rod?
Yeah, I've
Do you
had,
have a question or?
I have a question on the motion, or,
Sure. Should we get a second and we'll?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second? Okay, go ahead,
And
Rod.
then ask
Go
a
ahead.
question. I'm not going to pretend to know the complexity of these issues and/or the possibility of some people going to the county, which I think someone said was perhaps $8 instead of $26. I don't know what the effect is on construction or deconstruction in Fergus Falls, what that effect that will have on contractors, on business. I'm just aware that this is a very large issue, and my concerns that I raised in the committee of the whole were that if we lose business because we're going to such a higher rate, which is 3 times the county's rate, and I know it's a long ways, but then the danger is that some of that could fall back upon the citizens of Fergus Falls to support the bonds that will not be paid for by the rate that we need a certain amount of volume to pay for. Okay. So before we go through with this, I don't think it's kicking the can down the road or any kind of thing like that to truly understand the levels involved and the long-term implications of moving ahead with this regulation. We don't have to be in this business, okay? And I'm concerned that I don't want the citizens to bear something for the next so many years of the site, plus 30 years beyond that to monitor it, that we are going to add to the tax burden of the citizens. And I would like us to consider one thing from the side of our the EIC or the development, the economic impacts, if we could get some kind of a picture of what effect this might have on those contractors, on deconstruction and things like that, I would feel more comfortable with a larger picture here before we move ahead with this. We've talked about financing, but I think the risk factor, are we going to mitigate these risks correctly for the citizens? I don't think it's a slam dunk.
Any other,
So I won't vote for it right now.
Yeah,
go ahead, Scott.
I just think that we're gonna make a decision, we're gonna be in the business or not in the business, pretty much what it is, and that's what they're asking us to do. And it's a city our size, I think we need to be in the business to have something to continue the building process of everything, they have someplace to put it. And so if they don't, they gotta accept, the cost of it to go to Henning, which how long that'll stay open. I'm gonna ask Lee that one, I guess.
I'd like to speak to you about this just a little bit, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to hear that, okay.
Scott?
Yeah. Okay.
Lee, would you please come up, Mr. Commissioner?
Thank you, Your Honor, but Lee will be just fine. We are sensitive to the agenda item here that you're dealing with. And I think we'd like to be a little bit better prepared to present to the council and mayor. However, our solid waste managers in Rochester and has been there for almost over a month, undergoing treatment for cancer. So we have had Zach Fiested meet with, Brian, did he meet with you?
It's been some time, he's involved in the permit, he's
Yeah.
been involved in the permit
Yeah.
process.
So we're a little bit aware, and we had a subcommittee meeting on Public Works week or so ago, and we talked about this and what dilemma this might be for you. And then we looked at the projects that we're aware of that need to go into a demolition mode. And one of the things that we're really considering that is important for our community and for the environment is to address how we might address this materials. We know, and we've studied with you, the properties at the Regional Treatment Center. We are of the opinion there's no lead on the paint, in the paint that's on the brick. That being an important item, because then we can address that by crushing it and recycling it. And there's a lot of brick up there. And then we also know of another project in the community. It's almost a square block. Well, it's a half a block of a lot of brick building in there, and that it's proposed to be demoed. And that does not have paint on it, but it would require to have some of the inner building materials separated from the outside exterior building and the concrete, the blocks and so forth. And we really want to see that in the county. We want to look at that and see how we can address that to go into a recycling mode. And I'm not here to tell you, advise you on your motion that you have before you. I'm here to tell you that we are open to have conversation with you so that you don't get into a situation where your rates prohibit the use, and now you have an obligation and liability back to the bondholder, and you're kind of in a fix in between. And so we're willing to be open to a conversation on that and make that very clear to you tonight. Any questions of myself?
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Lee. Bill?
Lee, do you know when is Henning permit up for renewal? I mean, because obviously this is something, the commissioner said that basically, we're the first one that's got issued a permit under the new rules, and that all subsequent permits are going to be, implied that they have the same strict standards. And so we just happen to be the first community that's got this.
Congratulations. I do not know what our date on that particular site is, and I know we've had another major brick disposal in the last 5, 6 years, and that was buried, and that has come forward to be an issue that will have to be addressed too. So I don't know what the permit is, and I don't even know what the rate is over at Henning, but I know it's under $25.
It's $8.
How much?
I think it's $8 what we.
It's 8 something, I
Yeah.
think, when I look at it.
And we're concerned about that rate being not sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Lee.
So I'm just going to think out loud here, because we're just, we brought this up and we're just kind of dumping it all before you so you can see what the analysis looks like. Certainly, we are open to certainly talking and working with Otter Tail County. We're part of Otter Tail County, so I think I speak truthfully with that absolutely. We just wanted you to have the whole picture from the start of what this looks like, and it's a big issue. It's huge. So, and I think just Lee spoke very clearly of that. So, I mean, we're certainly open to working with Otter Tail County, and if we want to hold the brakes for the moment on that, I think that's just fine too. So,
I'm not sure about the order of this, but I would think it would be wise to offer in the interim a motion that our staff, those concerned, could meet with the county, as Leah said, willing to talk about what options there might be, what they're looking at. And we would be more informed then to vote on this at the next council meeting. But in the meantime, that motion would be to direct the staff to take immediate action to try to come up with some bigger picture items. Is that?
maybe not even at the next meeting. It may take even a little longer
Yeah, I
than
don't,
that,
not to force the hand, but yeah, come back when we're ready.
Yep, Your Honor. Can Brian just address the timeline for when we can no longer take demolition out of the city dump, because that's imminent?
Yeah, phase 1 and 2 are active cells. We've been monitoring that, well, annually, but more so since this permit, we tried to get this permit and secure this project for last year, 2015, or excuse me, last fall. With the reissuance of this new permit, the PCA also granted us an amendment to increase the side slopes, therefore the volume airspace. That was actually originated idea from the county too during those discussions. So we could increase our capacity and we wouldn't be quite on the critical path trying to get this new cell 3A done last year. We were in that same predicament. But yes, we're here right now. I can't speak of the recent conversations that they've had and everything, but yes, it's a very sensitive topic. We've all talked about our concern, and I was also at the meeting with the PCA commissioner. One thing he did not really, in my opinion, answer was people may bring him to demo to Henning, but he did not provide me an answer when it comes to illicit discharges, which is something you really can't quantify, but you gotta really be concerned about. Yeah, we agree. Financially, it's a difficult matter, difficult subject, but there will be probably, this may open the window to perhaps, I don't want to say promote that, but the occurrences that are happening.
Your Honor, another item here I think we should consider, we are obviously a test case for this first application, like it or not. And over time, there may be some amelioration of that. We're not sure. Okay, we don't know what's going to, other communities will push back or what will be done. The second thing is, if I understand this, this is not a crisis for the city in the sense of we are going to suddenly lose a whole bunch of income if we don't immediately act on it. If we were not to have that cell ready at a certain date, what's the worst possible scenario that could happen? Let's say we delayed it even a year and we really studied this more at the county, we waited to see someone else get these regulations applied to us, versus the risk of bonding for this and being tied up and not knowing if we're going to have to lay that on the citizens of Fergus Falls because we can't support it by the rates. It's not just a rush to make sure we give a service to demo people. We have to consider the taxpayers here. And so I think it'd be irresponsible to go ahead without more information and study. And we don't have to provide this service. It's not crucial for the city, as I understand it, right now, if we were to delay it. Is that true? I mean,
yeah, if we don't collect, then disposal will just have to happen somewhere else in the interim. We collect about $260,000 is what we collected last year in 2016 in demolition fees. So, I mean, we'd lose out on some revenue in the interim.
yeah, and to say that, I mean, to add that we might also lock ourselves into paying out costs in the long term that
Certainly.
we cannot sustain. So there is that balance with this.
That's our risk, yeah.
Yeah.
Anthony?
But obviously anybody taking, at some point in time, the city landfill will no longer be available to receive demolition materials, so therefore the residents of Fergus Falls will be obligated to take that to Henning. So there is obviously that is also another part we have to consider, that everybody will have to go to Henning.
Yeah, go ahead, Gordon.
I was just wondering, is there a closure deadline on the other two landfills then? Despite, say we don't go ahead and we don't build one, we still have a closure deadline?
Yeah, we're already, we'll be there within, depends on the rates you want to apply to it, or excuse me, the fill volume, more than likely latest February of this winter here. We're looking, based on our volumetrics, we've been shooting at topography quite frequently, even more. So even with this right now, and this is, like I said, we were back in fall, and we have been looking at a lot of scenarios, and absolutely right, the one of those maybe perhaps get all the business too. That could be pending too, based on if there's any legislation action with the landfill operators group. That's very active and very at the forefront of this whole topic right now that we're speaking of. And like I said, it was the PACA, and ultimately it was, they're using the same guidance document on the statute, how it's just a reinterpretation of the existing rules.
Right.
So is it possible that by us taking or not taking an action, we could influence what happens at the legislature, what happens with the operators?
It's really really difficult. The only thing before you right now is with Houston, them completing the plans and specs, hopefully having an opportune time to bid this fall with the favorable construction prices. That's why I'm kind of gauging this right now.
Sure.
If the council chooses to proceed. We might be at the time where we could maybe get a contract, but we couldn't start construction, or we'd have to wait till spring. Either case, we can look at it. It's just delaying that duration of the ability not to accept materials.
And you think we're in that time frame right now, before the September council meeting, or what is the time frame for that to make the construction this fall?
I'd have to look at the whole schedule and everything with it. It's a certified liner with the native materials, and that's with the moisture. It depends if we have a good fall, very fall.
Sure.
There's a few things, but no, we can. I agree. It's been a long topic of discussion for some time.
So it sounds like it might be worthwhile at least having a discussion with the county, just at least delaying this until we can have that discussion with the county, but it's up to the council. There's a motion and a second on the floor, and we can either vote on the motion, or if someone wants to amend that to...
Just to clarify, we're looking at spending $103,500 today. We're not looking at spending $1 million. And that's to engage Houston Engineering to obviously start on the design and come up with the cost.
Right.
So, yeah, the council still has the opportunity to ultimately not go ahead with this.
You are correct, Councilmember.
There's also, even if we spend the 103, it doesn't mean we can't partner with the county.
We're gonna work with the county no matter what.
Go ahead, we're just going ahead with the design.
You know, one of the issues that came, I just want to bring that to your attention too, when we came to the composting pile, we did evaluate and we continue to, if we could do controlled burns for the composting instead of grinding the stumps and the tree piles we have there. We've talked to Houston Engineering, discussed it, believe at a council as a whole. I'm not saying it's somewhat prohibitive by what we got to do with the screening the ash pile, the burn material, and where you apply it. We're still proceeding and evaluating those type of different processes. Yes, we want to limit as much material as we can and reuse as much material going into the landfill. I think we all agree to that.
So,
Consequences of not complying. Town MPCA, we just can't afford to do it.
It's really an answer I can't answer. I haven't been down that road yet.
Citizens go to Henning.
Yeah, because they wouldn't allow us to put anything in the
They
ground.
close it down.
If they don't approve it, so we would stop accepting demo.
We'd in violation of the permit, and it depends.
Brent?
Now, if we're worried about the possibility of losing a lot of our business to Henning, I mean, is there any way to do a poll with these local contractors who do a lot of the business with us and say, hey, this is what we're proposing?
this is what the fees would go up to for the convenience of keeping it in the city. If we do this, are you looking at going to Henning, or are you looking at wanting to still have a facility here? Even if we put it out on a website or something and then let them all know, because that's where a majority of our business comes from. Is there any way, this way we can get a general idea, do these people say, hey, we're not gonna be able to compete, we're gonna have to go to Henning? Or is there a way of saying, they're gonna say, yeah, it's more of a convenience for us to bring it here because of labor, transportation costs, and everything else?
I mean, we could definitely look at some way of doing that informally on the website possibly. You know, the other thought is that when Henning does come up for recertification or relicensure, if they go to 30 and we're sitting here without a demo cell, then we're really not in a very good shape too. So that's another consideration. I mean, because like you say, ultimately, unless the interpretation of the rules are changed, everyone's going to be under these rules at some point.
Eventually here.
Well, and I believe the county, they recently, I think their permit was up for renewal, so they're probably about a year in the forefront prior to us submitting for our expiration of our permit. Throughout this whole process, the main underlying theme was the native soils, what this one Class 1 demo, the underlying soils. Henning and some of these are granular base material, and that's where their PCA is determining that they're finding some constituents in there, contamination of groundwater. We, however, have a native clay liner that obviously won't infiltrate, but it's requiring us to do the leachate collection system. Not to get into too much detail, but yes, the geological formation where these existing landfills are at are something to take into consideration and have been part of the conversation. It may be at the time, it's only speculation that the granular fill, the landfills on top of granular sands may be the ones that may be way restricted, if not even permitted. We don't quite know.
So we have a motion and a second. I believe it's a motion, right? It's a resolution. It's a resolution and a second. Are we ready to vote on the resolution that's on the floor? Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Rachel's.
No.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
No.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
No.
Hicks.
Yes.
Efford.
No.
4-3. Okay, the resolution fails. Thank you, Brian. Bill, thank you.
In the interim, Your Honor, we are asking the city to discuss with the county. Okay. Thank you. And I think Mr. Thompson's suggestion about trying to talk to the contractors, I think that could be done from the city side, knowing the contractors in the area to get some kind of additional information along with this, talking to the county. Is that a
Feedback.
possibility?
Something that maybe, April, would you have
Or
to contact the?
whoever.
Would
Would
your
that work?
office be able to do that?
It would help us, I think.
Get some feedback from them.
Yeah. We could also possibly invite them to a meeting at some point too, if they'd like to discuss further. So, all right, thanks everyone for that discussion. Under old and unfinished business, item number 1 is a final cost assessment for public improvement 5853.
Mr. Mayor, council members.
Steve, 1 second. We got one item here before we get to, on your agenda, there's not year number 1, but we have a M1. Just bear with us for 1 second. Yeah, Scott just stepped out, and this is the,
This would be the property where the gentleman on Lincoln Center, who incidentally, obviously, does have that property for sale. So I think we should note that he's appealing that we shouldn't charge him this tax levy, but he's also in the process of trying to sell the building.
and it would seem to me that because this takes a super majority, and it would seem to me we should bring this up. Last time we brought this up, we had 1 council member gone, now we have 2. I think we should wait until we have all 8 council members and just vote this up or down and then move on with it. Fair enough?
I would agree.
We'll move on to the next item, then we'll just table that and bring it to the next, Under M1, one, we have the dairy property pro forma. And I think that, we have a copy of this in your packet. I do think, Steve, I'm not sure what extent you want to discuss this. I think we will discuss it in the closed session as well, because it does pertain to the council's decision on the purchase agreements. So I guess it's up to the council how much you want to discuss with Steve right now, versus we will be bringing this up as part of the purchase agreement with the dairy property as well.
I think we could wait till close, and then we'll have more clarity on
I
everything.
mean, there is information in here that will
Will
be
eventually
relevant
come
to
up.
our decision whether to enter into the purchase agreement, so I think it's
I'll
would
wait.
make sense
Thank you.
would make sense to talk about it in the closed session.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
That's up to the council.
Under new, there is no new business. Is that a stretch or a hand raise over there?
No, it's,
Scratch, all right.
sorry.
There's no new business unless the council has any new business to bring forward. Under miscellaneous announcements, the August 10th, Anthony mentioned there's a Wright Park Community Design Workshop held here in the City Council chambers at 5 o'clock with a presentation at 5:30. And then on August 21st, we'll have our Committee of the Whole and the City Council meeting followed at 5:30.
Your Honor.
And is there any other announcements? I just wanted to make one announcement. Aaron, your new facility, your temporary facility is up and running, and for those who, it's in the old Pomida building. What's the name of the building? It's on Pebble Lake Road. It's the Heritage Building, that's right. So anyone who hasn't had a chance to to make it out there yet, it's gonna be a fine space in the interim while we build our new library. So good job to you and your staff of decorating that, outfitting that.
Quickly, so.
Yes.
Thank you to everyone for the assistance in doing that.
Yeah, and I used to wax the floors there, but it was the old Gibson Discount Center in those days. But,
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah. But what I did want to say was totally different. I had a conversation with Tammy Dayfield, and she has, suffered a tremendous tragedy with the PTSD effects on her son and then the loss of her husband. She is going down to the legislature to address some leaders about PTSD legislation. Bud Nornis will be there, and I think he is arranging some of those meetings. But I think it's something that we should support and offer our support as a council. Tammy is being courageous. She's coming out, talking about her story. She's been on the, in the Forum, and she's been on the news. She was on the radio here in Fergus, I believe, with Jim. So all I was going to say is I think that whether it's a resolution, a show of support, or just a positive, say we support Tammy in this, and it's a crucial need for veterans, and it includes our area because the needs are focused in the Midwest because of the number of reservists that went to serve, and so the PTSD is a very real thing for our community, and I think we should be supporting her in every which way. August 16th, I believe, is the date. I can't verify that if someone else knows, but to support the care of veterans and the whole PTSD problem.
Thanks, Ron. I do believe that a resolution would be appropriate, and I think you just offered one.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there a
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Justin, thanks. Does anyone else have anything to add or any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Rachel.
Yes.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
Thank you, Rod. The resolution is approved. Anthony? Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. Real quickly, we had the opportunity to host the annual Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities here in Fergus Falls last Wednesday through Friday. We had over 100 city officials from every corner of Minnesota in town. Did a lot of activities, including a downtown tour on Thursday morning, which was met with great reviews and very excited folks from other cities. And I just want to thank everybody who had a hand in putting that together. There's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes to get that done. And it was a very successful conference, and we had a lot of positive feedback from all the people in attendance. So thank you to those who had a hand in that, and then to also those who attended the conference on behalf of the city.
Yeah, I second that. Very successful conference. Anything else to come before the council? If not, we will adjourn to closed session as permitted by the attorney-client privilege to discuss real estate negotiations regarding dairy property. And I do not believe we're going to reconvene the meeting.